Boy, we just cannot stop getting hate comments about our Mahoka review. What are they yelling at us about? Well, they're mostly complaining that we didn't get it because we didn't read the first manga. Well, if it'll make the fans happy, I guess we could review it. I mean, reviewing manga is our job. Oh man, you are gonna regret asking us to look at this.
Sold me, you sold me down the river now. I hope you're feeling happy now. Now you always have a sneer in your smile. But wake up, baby, you're so totally deluded. You'll end up old and lonely if you don't get a bullet in your head.
Hello, I'm Plutoburns, and welcome to Eagleland. So yeah, today we are returning to our coverage of Screw it! The English title is The Irregular at Magic High School, or as I intend to continue demeaningly referring to it as, Sci-fi Harry Potter. We have a lot of shit to cover on this one, so we're just going to jump straight into summarizing this. In the early 2000s, there was a dramatic cooling of the planet that led to a lot of people breaking immigration laws and a decrease in food supply, which eventually led to a Third World War, which was magic-powered as magic had been discovered in the 90s. Rather than recount that awesome backstory, we jump ahead 50 years to Tatsuya Shiba and his sister Miyuki Shiba enrolling in a Japanese high school for training magicians. Because of course this takes place in high school. Tats and his sister are from a prestigious family and must contend with inter-high school political drama and the upcoming magic tournament with other schools. Because a high school tournament is definitely the defining moment of your life. Oh, and maybe they'll foil a terrorist plot and solve some of the greatest mysteries of modern magic. You know, in their spare time, if they can be bothered. If you couldn't tell from the tone, I'm not a fan of this manga. But the light novel it's based on does have a big fan base, so I'd like to preface that my distaste for the franchise is my own, and I'm not just trying to troll fans here. If you're a fan, go ahead down in the comments and make your defense of this series. But don't you dare try and tell me that this manga isn't nearly as incestuous as the bloody Lannisters. Don't try to BS me on how Tats My Name had his emotions removed. It is made very clear that he has had all his emotions removed except for his love for his sister. So incest romance is definitely still on the table. And that's not even getting into his sister's insane brother complex. She clearly harbors romantic feelings for her brother. As a test, I presented these images to some of my sibling-inclined friends. Hey guys, what are we about? Oh my god! Oh, and his sister has a jealous streak a mile wide. She can't stand the idea of her brother even talking to other women, which is weird because he clearly has no interest in other women, so she has to pull a violent magic freak out over stupid stuff, like him having a 5-minute lunch conversation with a woman. So Milky is either going full bro-con or rolling out the obnoxious tsundere routine. God, I hate myself for inventing the term tsundere. No way. You didn't invent the term tsundere. Yeah, I did. Well, how do you know? I binged it. You had me going there for a second. Oh, and following that scene with his half-nude sister rubbing her boobs on his back, she blasts him with magic for daring to speak with another woman in public. And the magic blast cracks his skull open. And then some sort of automated healthcare magic kicks in and stitches his head back together. Tatsalot is supposed to be really bad at practical magic, but really good at magic theory. Which is complete nut-buggering walrus piss. He is the best damn mage in this story. And I can prove it with a little list that I'm going to get started right over here. Going from the stated hypothesis that Tatsugun is bad at practical magic, our first counterexample is auto-healing. So, being bad at magic lands Tatsa Spicy Meatball in the second class of this school. The school is heavily segregated by magic test scores. The top 100 students are in Class 1, and the bottom 100 are in
Class 3?
In Class 2. The Class 1 students are the elites of the school and look down on the Class 2 students, calling them weeds based on their lack of a not at all symbolic flower emblem. The reason for this setup is that apparently sometimes students die, so the Class 2 students are essentially in reserve. The school also has a lack of magic teachers available, so Class 1 students get one-on-one coaching, while Class 2 students have to make do with self-guided online lessons.
I have a lot of complaints here, but the primary one is, why do they need 100 substitutes? I will grant that magic research can be dangerous, so you would need some backups, but 100 substitutes? How dangerous can this school realistically allow the magic research to get? Especially considering that most of the Class 1 students are from really rich families who might have something to say about this school allowing their children to blow themselves up.
Oh, and really clever workaround on not having to have teachers. Seriously, almost everything in this school is student-run, even the disciplinary committee. And Tatsuniko gets drafted into said disciplinary committee because his sister pitched a fit and wouldn't join the student council unless her beloved brother got some kind of recognition. There was apparently some rule about no Course 2 students on the student council, but the disciplinary committee is a separate entity and they believe his ability to read what spell is being cast before it happens will be useful to them. Hooray for loopholes!
Oh, but the school isn't really segregated. The student council has a policy that the use of the derogatory term weeds is forbidden, and no other form of segregation exists. Yeah, the teachers are mostly reserved for the Class 1 students, and magic clubs receive far larger budgets, but Japan is in constant danger of military invasion, so of course they're going to focus on the military power that can come from the best and the brightest, and
I didn't have time to get a scarecrow to be my straw man.
Look, just because segregation isn't on the books doesn't mean it isn't happening. That's why affirmative action exists. Too many of the gatekeepers were racists. If you have enough holders of power sharing a point of view, you don't need to organize the segregation. The Class 1 students fully embrace their supposed superiority. This dickhead picks a fight with Tatsalata Fish simply because Miyuki from Class 1 wanted to spend time with her brother in Class 2. And of course he's a member of the student council who won't accept Tatsuya's hiring and challenges him to a duel to prove himself. The fight ends pretty quick with Tats what she said dodging using his ninja skills and knocking Dickhead out with a brainwave attack. Oh, did I forget to mention Tats All Folks was trained to fight by ninjas?
That's not actual magic, but his base physical skills are so high that people mistook them for magic, so it goes on the list. Then add on his ability to non-lethally disable other magicians from a distance. Oh, almost forgot to count his ability to decipher spells before they are cast.
Before we go on with this, I want to talk about the art design. This manga is well drawn, good variety of faces, yada yada yada, but I absolutely hate the clothing designs. The girls have to wear a sleeveless, floor-length dress with a gossamer outer layer paired with a jacket so tiny it wouldn't even count as clothing were it not paired with the dress. Very practical for science and combat. And the guys get these over-designed monsters with the most ridiculous collars. Look at this. Look at this. These aren't even popped collars, they're more like neck braces. And the clothing is extremely sexualized. This artist either doesn't know or doesn't care how boobs actually work, because they absolutely don't perfectly mold to the clothes so that you can see them from every glorious angle. Even weirder is the fact that you can often see the girl's hip V through their dresses. That shouldn't even be possible, no matter how tight the dress clearly isn't. Not that the guys get out of this either. All of the guys are so goddamn broad-shouldered and slim that they look like triangles. Except this guy, who looks more like a square Tetris block.
But at least they objectify both sexes equally, says the person who doesn't know what objectification means.
So, getting back to the story, Tanks for the Memories is really good at his job, even though the Course 1 students begrudge his authority over them. His ability to cancel out other mages' spells mid-cast is especially useful. And it's this ability that brings him to the attention of the anti-magic movement, which has underground support in the Class 2 students who want some bloody equal treatment.
Alright, so it's finally time for Tats out here to do something productive. So he's gonna use his position of influence to create change from the inside, right?
Nope! He reports the existence of an underground resistance to the student council and proceeds to tell his sister all about how these poor, misguided students are being misled by pretty words like equality.
Strap in, people. It's about to get preachy in here.
So Tatsuya talks about the group Blanche and how they strive for an end to social, political, and economic equality caused by magic. Which, yeah, sounds totally reasonable. But wait! Tat's a load of shit is from one of those super rich families with tons of political pull and practically runs the country. So it would make much sense for him to support a movement that politically resists his family.
Yeah, it would. His family hates him and treats him like trash.
No. If his family lost its position, he wouldn't be able to play with the latest magic toys, protect his sister. So, naturally, Blanche is considered a disruptive, terrorist-like organization. And there's all sorts of stupid explanations for why their anti-magic position is bollocks. Like how all magicians aren't rich and powerful. It's just the top 1% of the nation are magicians, so they're dragging up the average. And anyhow, magic is important to the nation's defense, so naturally magicians are more important and should be paid more.
Oh, now I get it.
This manga has objectivism as a core guiding philosophy. Objectivism was created by Ayn Rand and put forth in a series of novels on the subject. It can best be described as, if all the lawyers and politicians would just get out of the way, then the smart people who actually make things could do their job better and the world would be better for it.
There's more to it than that, but Sci-Fi Harry Potter doesn't even do it right. In Ayn Rand's novels, the point is made that prime movers can come from anywhere because their talent and hard work will ensure that they rise in power. In Sci-Fi Harry Potter, all the power in the world is held by an oligarchy of old families who have been hoarding influence and money for generations. In Ayn Rand's novels, the bad guys are a bunch of morons who use mob tactics and politics to drag down the efforts of the smart people. In Sci-Fi Harry Potter, the bad guys are a grassroots movement of normals who are considered disruptive for floating the idea that maybe the mages could stop hogging all the sandwiches.
And I really do appreciate the portrayal of how evil the terrorists are. Not only do they gather impressionable youth into their cabal through exploitation of their desire for equality, but the leader of the band of terrorists uses magic hypnotism to control people and puts on evil theatrics worthy of a Bond villain. There, dear. Don't worry. It's perfectly natural to desire equality. But remember that if you try to create equality, the terrorists win.
Fuck you, Manga.
Speaking of, yeah, the terrorists do attack the school. And remember how in the last Harry Potter book, the attack on the school actually resulted in the deaths of major characters fans liked? Yeah? Well, no one dies in this attack. Seriously, a trained terrorist strike force with machine guns and grenades squared off against inexperienced high schoolers with magic powers, and no one dies? It's not like, oh my god, teachers?!
Quick! Get them off panel! There can be no hint of adult supervision!
I'm not saying I don't buy that the students wouldn't put up a fight or even eventually repel the smaller terrorist force. The magic in this universe is designed for combat after all. I just refuse to buy that no one got hit with a stray bullet. It's one of the great paradoxes of sci-fi that supremely low-tech bullets are actually really hard to deal with.
Headshot.
After repelling the terrorist attack, Tattarat takes action for literally the first time in the damn story and decides to attack the terrorists at their home base. Because if he doesn't, they might come back and hurt his beloved sister. So a small squad of teenagers ram a truck into a terrorist base, we waste some time with previously mentioned hypnosis guy, and Tatsabad pulls out his last card. the ability to destroy guns. Which brings me full circle to this manga's biggest problem. Tatsuya Shiba makes Echizen Ryoma look good. I do not make that statement lightly. Many characters in popular fiction are little more than empty vessels imbued with surface qualities that the creator thinks the audience will find cool, Ryoma being a prime example. And then there are the put upon everyman, the one who is supposed to remind you of yourself because you aren't cool and no one seems to like you. Both can be done well or poorly. Sci-fi Harry Potter decides to try combining the two. The results are kind of like what happens when you mix sulfuric acid with sugar. Shit. Tatsuya being stuck in the loser class, being a target of abuse, having a family that hates him, being bad at magic. All that stuff tries to position Tatsuya as an underdog. But at the same time, the manga bends over backwards to make him as cool as possible. He's unflappable, comes from a rich family, has a devoted little sister, and a disturbing number of the largely female cast are rather enamored of him. And even though he's supposed to be bad at practical magic, he still has this insane list of things that he can do that make him basically untouchable in combat. I will not buy that someone is an underdog if their morning training involves beating up ninjas. Earlier, when I said that Tatsuya had most of his emotions removed, I neglected to mention why. It was part of a magic experiment where they converted the parts of his brain that handle emotions into mathematical processing. This at least explains how it is he does some of the more unbelievable types of magic he pulls off, but doesn't really explain why he sucks at more basic stuff. And more so than the objectivism, the incest, the pandering, this emotionlessness is the heart of what's wrong with this manga. Tatsuya has no emotions, and therefore doesn't really do anything unless his sister gets involved. He only joins the disciplinary committee because his sister pitched a fit. He only accepted the duel because his sister's honor was impugned. He only gets involved with the resistance stuff because it's his duty as a disciplinary member. The one time he takes action without being goaded into it is when he attacks the terrorists. And he only does it because they might come back and hurt his sister. Having no emotions and only reacting to things makes you a very boring protagonist. Jeezy Creasy, even Reboot-A-Cop got that one right. Oh, and it turns out I was a little too forgiving in my first review. I gave it a pass on the characters because I assumed they were established and developed in the manga I hadn't read at the time. Turns out, not really. Some are, but these two girls do basically nothing. I assigned them way more character in my head than this manga gives them to work with. And the bloody charts make a show-stopping appearance, though at least this one has the good sense to have some actual action scenes. Irregular at a magic high school may be well-made and deeply written, but you know what else was well-made? Birth of a Nation. I don't care how well-made you are, if you offend me on an intellectual level, I'm going to hate you. But even going beyond the core philosophy, there's just some really sloppy storytelling in this manga, which makes its attempts at acting cool all the more infuriating. It is just an unpleasant manga. All the stuff related to Irregular at Magic High School is written by Sato Tsutomu. And as far as I can tell, he is a very immature writer. That's my final word until I'm proven otherwise. Till next time, I'm Plutoburns, and this has been Eagleland.
My sister never made love to anyone else but me. She's the reason for my sexuality.